Stark Collis. I'm a senior writer at Entertainment Weekly magazine, and welcome to EW's Comic-Con studio. It is my huge pleasure to say that I have been joined today by Kevin Smith, the writer, director, and cast member, one of the cast members of Clerks 3. Hi, Kevin.
What does senior editor mean? That's top dog, right?
Very much so.
Is there anything about, was publisher above that? What's next?
The question is,
what hill do you climb after senior editor?
How many people are below? Not many.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's still, is it like the executive producer credit? No, in movies we give out associate producer, pass prod, like water.
Yeah.
Is it that? Are you like senior editor? Is it like the ass
pretty much?
Writing?
If you sure, I'll be sure to redo my resume.
And here I've been out spending currency on your name for years, going, I know Clark, and I'm like, he's a senior editor.
No,
apparently that's why I can't get a table anywhere.
I have no sway whatsoever.
How has your con been so far? Do you live it in this room?
Not in this room. We have a much worse room upstairs.
Where they put you when this is not happening?
Let's just say that down the street, there are people are lined up for a severance activation, at which people spent vast amounts of money making a horrific-looking office, and they could just join us upstairs with the monkeys and the typewriters.
I'm over at one of the hotels that's on the Strip, so you overlook the water. And at 6 o'clock this morning, I got up to take a leak, and I looked out the window, and the line to get in to the con was already around the marina.
Right. Now, were you peeing in the lake? Was that the plan?
No, I was peeing from my elitist position in a tower suite, looking down at everybody. But I did look at everybody and go, like, I have never experienced Comic-Con in that way. For as long as I've been coming to Comic-Con, somebody's like, this way, sir, into the back door. As much as I claim to be a fan, and I'm always like, oh, I love this crap, I don't know that there's anything. Like, I was talking to my wife this morning. She's like, would you ever wait in a line this long? I was like, if at the end of the line they were like, and here's your eternal life, then yes. But, like, short of that, I don't, maybe to see my dead father.
Right.
If somebody was like, Don Smith, Hall H, I'm like, holy shit, they got the old man back, and he's on Hall H. Is he following Marvel or before Marvel? Maybe I'd line up for that, but when I look at everybody, that's passion.
Yeah.
I was talking about, like, I'm such a passionate artist and stuff, but if somebody was like, you got to get in a line to make your movie, I'd be like, oh, no, I don't have time for that.
Well, Kevin Smith, talking about passion, I'm going to launch into a segue now. A lot of your fans are very passionate for looking forward to Clerks 3.
Thank the Lord.
What can you tell us about that?
I can't wait for them all to see it. I was terrified, the day we dropped the trailer a couple weeks ago. Because I thought Lionsgate did an amazing job with the trailer. Cutting a trailer is a fine art form that I have no experience in doing. I can make a movie, barely. You ask the critics, they'll tell you no. But making a trailer of that movie, you got to give it to somebody who's exceptional at that. And they cut like such an amazing trailer that I loved it. And I would watch it over and over again and make me rewatch the movie that I'd written and made and stuff. So as we prepared to drop it, I've been on the internet since like 1995. We had a website, viewsq.com.
It was you and Al Gore.
Even before him, it was me and Peter Jackson. We were the only, like, two quote-unquote known people on the internet and stuff, directors at least. And then he fucked off to go make movies and win Oscars and shit. And I was like, this internet's great. So I stayed mired in it and stuff. So, I was terrified, being that I've spent eons on the internet, that the thing you love is usually the thing that a lot of people will hate and come at you for and stuff. So right before we dropped the trailer, like, I spent 2 hours watching it back to back to back because I was like, soon they're going to rob you of this. Soon, like, some random stranger is going to be like, you suck and this trailer's terrible, and you're going to roll a fucking tear, and then all this love that you feel for it is gone. And I was so delighted, Clark, to see that, short story is the internet seemed to embrace the trailer. Long story was like Lionsgate, like when you work with an actual studio and shit, they could give you data. They did like a data breakdown afterwards, and I was so delighted because there's 3 categories, right? There's like positive, negative, and the middle one is indifference. And so all of our reactions were positive to indifferent. And I was like, oh, to be felt indifferent toward. Like, oh my God, if I had had a little bit of that on Masters of the Universe, oh, that would have been nice. So it was a delightful day for me. Anybody who sees the trailer has pretty much seen a perfect encapsulated snapshot of the movie. If you like the trailer, it's just that times 100. It's a real fun movie. It's funny as fuck. It's feel good. I do feel responsible to start warning people, bring tissues, because it's a very oddly emotional.
Is it sexy?
You will just, no, not for that, Clark. My God. And people say I'm the filthy one. I'm trying to keep it G. Fuck, Clark. No. Yes, you can bring tissues for both reasons. For joy, but also because it's going to be an oddly emotional trip. You're going to watch these kids grow up in front of you in a weird way. And a lot of people who go to this movie have been watching these characters grow up and stuff. And it has this weird reaction or interaction with the audience that I didn't plan for. It just came when we started screening, and I noticed. You get a bunch of people who are my age or within 10 years of my age on either side and stuff, and they're looking at the movie and they're seeing these characters who they've watched grow up and they've aged with them, and it's instantly self-reflective. And suddenly you're like, oh, I was 20 when I started watching this shit. I'm fucking 45 right now. It has this weird cumulative effect that, like, when I made the first movie, I was never thinking, like, how can I pull at heartstrings? I was just like, how do I make them laugh? But after, like, 3 decades of, inarguably trying to make people laugh, whether I succeed or not is up to the audience, I fell in love with the idea of, like, well, I pushed this button for years. What happens if I push that button? Mm-hmm. Like, I'd much rather dig at their hearts, because now that I've got longevity on my side and a long tail, that's what you realize is the only currency that really spends at the end of the day. Like, they just dropped a story the other day about these are the salaries that these motherfuckers make in the movies, and I too read it, and I was like, good God. Money's nice, man, but that goes to mortgages, rent, whatever, weed. What the currency that lives forever and spends is like when you touch a motherfucker emotionally, when they come up to you at a con, like, I go to cons all the time. This ain't the only con I go to all year, but I love going to this con. The first time I got to go in 3 years, so it's been amazing. But at a con, you get to actually get in touch with folks who maybe aren't so quick to write it on the internet, but they got you face to face, and that's when you hear the real. That's when they're like, I almost killed myself were it not for chasing Amy. My mom died of cancer, but Dogma was the movie. Like, stuff like that, that's what spends. That's the biggest currency. So that emotional stuff is what I lean more toward. I'm still interested in making people laugh, don't get me wrong, but, like, I want to make them feel. I'm closer to the end than I am to the beginning at this point and stuff. And you start thinking about legacy. Like, when I've got 30 years behind me, I'm like, well, how much more time do I have? What do I want to do in that time? And all you want to do in that time is give people that feeling that I had when I went to the movies as a kid with my father, sitting next to my father, who was a very quiet man. And in a movie theater, I got to figure out who the fuck my father was. I saw what made him laugh, which then in turn taught me what was funny. What made him cry? A grown-ass man who wouldn't cry around the house, but, like, is watching a movie and getting emotional. Understanding as a kid, like, that's allowed, that's okay and stuff. I wanted to be able to provide that, like, for the rest of my life for other people, those weird special moments that help define me. Not everyone is into movies as much as I am, but movies are at the root of a lot of our lives, man. It's the thing we go to forget one day we're going to fucking die and stuff. So it's important Earth. It's ridiculous throwaway, pop culture Earth, but it has weird, emotional, strong Earth with people. This is way deeper than I expected to go on Clerks 3. The third iteration of Clerks, by the way. Not even like the second one.
Right.
But yeah, this is what happens when you get old. You start thinking about weird shit like this.
Well, you were inspired to write the script after having a cardiac arrest in 2018.
You're kind of say inspired. I was so bereft of fucking ideas as a filmmaker that I once again stole from my own life. And I was like, ooh, the most interesting thing that ever happened to me since making Clerks was I almost fucking died. Let's make a movie about that.
And how is that reflected in the film?
Humorously, mostly, but also, like, poignant as well. Like, I'm lucky. I had a widowmaker, and it's a kind of heart attack where my doctor told me it's like in 20% of in 80% of the cases, the patient always dies. So I had a 20% chance coming out of it. I came out of it. My perspective in this world is always like, oh, I survived a widowmaker. So when people come up to me, they're like, my mother had the same heart attack you had. I'm like, how's she doing? They're like, she fucking died. Or like, my brother had that widowmaker. I'm like, what's he up to? Like, he's underground and shit. And then you start to realize, oh my God, like, Randall at one point, like, talks about, like, I had a heart attack. It's fine. Like, it's not. Like, and sometimes you lose perspective because after the heart attack, I was so fucking busy to go on living, right? Like, because in a moment like that, you feel weakest as you've ever felt as a human being. And they told me in the hospital, they're like, look, after heart attacks, middle-aged men like yourself can tend to go through stages of depression. And I was like, oh my God, what would that be like? Because I've never been depressed in my life. So I was like, that would be I would like to see that. It never came because I kept myself so busy. I just went right back to work and then tripled up the work because I had this weird feeling of like, oh shit. I mean, not even weird feeling. I just know now for a fact I'm living on borrowed time. We all are. I just act accordingly now because it's like, oh shit, the days are numbered and whatnot, and tomorrow's not promised. So in that time, you just want to make sure that you communicate everything you can. I don't have enough life in this world to get out apparently everything I want to say, and obviously I love this sound of my own voice, so I get lost in my own stories. But before I leave this world, I'm going to try to get out everything that is here. I don't think somebody asked me the other day, like, "What are you going to retire at one point?" And I didn't know if they were fishing for like, "Why are you still here?" or if they were genuinely interested. And I did after I think it was after Red State. I was like, "I'm going to retire." And I remember I did an interview with like Rolling Stone, and I was like, I made some joke about like I'm probably sitting around jerk off for the rest of my life. And I was laying in a bed, and there were tissues next to the bed in the photo. My mother called me up, and she was crying, and she was just like, "Don't give up, Tiger. Don't spend the rest of your life masturbating." I was like, "Nah, that's a joke, but I don't really need to make films anymore, so I'm going to stop." That'll never happen again. Like I picked up after that with Tusk anyway, so I went back to work. But I want to go out toes up on a movie set like Altman. Like Robert Altman, what a great life. Got to make these very singular fucking movies that are very distinctly his, that nobody will ever really be able to copy. A true artist. And then he left this world doing the thing he loved best. Like, what could be better than that? So, I don't know. As I was taking a whiz and looking at everybody online, I was realizing, good God, you've been breathing rarefied air for 30 fucking years. Like, I get to engage with Comic-Con in a whole different way. Yesterday, I was on the Hall H stage twice, moderating once for the Masters of the Universe 40th anniversary panel and once for the Shatner on Shatner panel, which you don't really moderate as much as hold on to.
I know the
fucking
feeling.
Rocco. Oh, yeah. He's wonderful. Honestly, like, I've always fucking loved Shatner. He's an icon and shit. Like, if you had a pop culture Mount Rushmore, he's definitely one of the fucking faces. But being on a stage with him, I appreciate him a whole different way because when you're up on stage and you know how to like keep a crowd going, when you bring other people into it, it's always like, well, I'm gonna pass you the ball, but whether this person doesn't know how to be funny, doesn't even know how to talk in front of an audience. This guy's been doing this shit like since before I was born. This is a guy who was there for the birth of like cons and fan culture and stuff. So it was delightful to see him work his crowd. 91 years old and irascible and just like making fun of the audience, almost like the Saturday Night Live sketch where he's like, "Get a life" from years ago. So it was kind of magical, man. I love coming here for reasons like this. Somebody asked me to like, "You come here all the time?" I was like, "Oh my God, this is my pop culture calendar reset." That's why I've missed it for like, the last 3 fucking years. Last time we were here was 2019, right before everything went to shit. We went on tour with Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, so it's fitting that we come back 3 years later and we're just about to go out on tour with Clerks 3.
Well, Kevin Smith, thank you so much for being here. I think I got 2 questions out today, which is one more than last time, but thank you.
It's always my aim in these things to let you rest.
You make my life so easy. Thank you so much.
It's just you're that interesting.
My name is Clark Collis from EW. I've been talking to Kevin Smith, the director of Clerks 3, which is out in September 13th and 15th.
September 13th and 15th in Fathom Event screenings, or you can see it with me on Clerks 3, the convenience tour. That's where I take it from city to city and watch it with you and do Q&A. All tickets for everything at clerks3.movie.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. I interviewed you 3 years ago, and there have been many times in the last 3 years where I would have bet heavy money for various reasons on this not happening again.
Yes.
But I'm so happy it is. I'm Clark Collis. This is Kevin Smith. Check out EW.com for all your Comic-Con coverage. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
See you.